And I was like, I want to play Queen. Then they were like, sick, you got the job. I was like, oh, and I just bursted.
Welcome, friends and fans, to another episode of GalaxyCon Live, where we are bringing the convention experience directly to you. And today, we are going back to the high courts of the 1500s with two amazing actresses from the cast of Reign. So without further ado, let us attend to today's visiting nobility. Our first guest is an actress whose body of work includes the original Birds of Prey, Flashpoint, and Batwoman. Today, she joins us to discuss playing Elizabeth Stewart, known to history as Queen Elizabeth I. Please welcome back Rachel Skarsten.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Addie, I'm so excited to be here today.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to have you back here. We were just talking a little bit before about Birds of Prey, and in the past couple of years, I've been recommending that when people hit the wall, we're like, I've seen all the CW Arrowverse stuff, and I'm jonesing for some more. Have you ever seen the Birds of Prey series? Check that out. And they always get back to me saying it's like a lost series. I'm like, yeah, very much is.
Yeah, no, it feels like a lifetime ago, but I'm always surprised how many people at Comic-Cons come up to me and they've watched Birds of Prey, or they watched Birds of Prey originally, and I'm like, how old are you? You look so young. That was so long ago. I've doubled my age since I did that show.
Well, it's important to note that you were young when you were on it, so let's...
I was 2. I was 2 years old. I know.
Indeed. Now, are you wearing red in honor of Valentine's Day, or is it just
I am, because obviously Addie and I talked about everyone coming to be our Valentine today, so I thought in true Valentine's Day form, I would dress up for all my Valentines today.
Well, very nice. Well, then allow me to play Cupid to our two Valentine nobilities. And once again, thank you for joining us today. It's great to see you in good spirit and in good health. And our next guest, she is an actress whose roles include Teen Wolf, Power Rangers, RPM, and Once Upon a Time. Today, she joins us to talk about her performance as Mary Stuart, known to history as Mary Queen of Scots. Please welcome back Adelaide Kane.
Yay! Hi. Good to be back. Good to see you. Rachel, you should have messaged me. I would have worn, well, I don't really have any red, but I would have worn pink.
I figured you'd wear red. I don't know.
Don't have anything red. I'm so stupid.
I know. Red's my favorite color, as Addie knows. And I don't have any red either. And so then coming up on Christmas, I was like, I feel like I should get a red sweater. So I got this at a vintage store.
Ooh. Of course you did. Did you get it at a Goodwill or like a Shishi vintage store?
It was somewhere in between. It wasn't Shishi. Addie knows me. If I can find something and it's like $1, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Your collection of Hawaiian shirts is truly impressive.
Really?
I love kimonos. I love Hawaiian shirts. Yeah. But I thought they were called tiki shirts. I thought they were called something else, and everyone was like, you're dumb. That's what they're called.
I have quite a collection of Hawaiian shirts myself. As a matter of fact, I've been collecting them so long that last time I was in New York, I went to a Shishi thrift place, and I saw ones that I bought at Walmart 20 years ago for sale there at an incredibly inflated price.
Oh my God.
And you didn't even know it. You could
start way ahead of the trends. Way ahead of the trends.
Well, no, I never want to be a trend. My philosophy always is Hawaiian shirts never go in style, so they never go out of style. They're always on the bubble.
True.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. Well, there you go. You heard it here first.
I'm sticking to it. But Addie, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you. I'm just hanging out, obviously, in my dungarees with my pets.
Well, I'm about to say, you got all your Pokemon plushies behind you there. Yeah.
I do. And I also have this cardboard cutout of Bernie Sanders.
I didn't even want to see that.
Yeah, just hanging out in the background, just living his best life.
Did you superimpose that onto your screen, or is that actually like a cardboard cutout?
No, so a friend of mine from my Dungeons and Dragons group is a sound mixer on sets, and they had a bunch of these cutouts, and he got one, and I traded him my old Xbox because I bought the new Xbox for the cutout. I was like, I need that. He was in the background of one of our D&D sessions on Zoom. And I was like, I need that desk. I'll give you anything you want for that Bernie cutout.
There you go.
And we did a socially distanced trade-off, contact-free trade-off. And now I have a Bernie cutout that I have no idea what to do with. And he scares the daylights out of me every day. I regret nothing.
You walk in and forget you had him, and you're like,
and it's so realistic too. Like it's Bernie sized.
It is.
It scares the crap out of me every day. Worth it. It's so worth it though, in my mind. I just get weirder and weirder the longer we're in this pandemic. It's
I know. I need to come back to LA. Things are getting bleak.
I mean, I have a giant 4-foot tall Snorlax. So I think I'm too far gone at this point.
No, that's
too late for me.
That one is to be expected.
So, and you got a guitar there behind you too.
I do, yeah. I used to be able to play pretty well, but I haven't picked it up in a very long time. Very long time.
Hey, it looks like a pretty sweet one too, from the silhouette.
Yeah, it's a Smith & Co. I got it when I was 16 when I was playing seriously. So it's a really lovely guitar, and I haven't had the heart to get rid of it for all these years.
Don't get rid of it. You'll take it off.
I can't. It's such a beautiful guitar. And every time people come over, I make sure it's, before the Rona times, I always made sure it was in tune because I've got a lot of very talented friends who play instruments. So someone will always pick it up and play us a little song.
Oh, well, there you go. There you go. Well, ladies, as always, welcome back to the GalaxyCon virtual stage. It is an absolute pleasure to have you here once again. And again, we are looking forward to the time when the world does get back to normal and we can once again get you back on our physical stages and get you back in front of your fans. In the meantime, we have this electronic forum and we're so glad to have you back.
Thank you so much for having us.
Of course. Our team right now is going through the chat room, pulling out the questions for us. In the meantime, I just throw this out. What was the best thing to come out of being a part of Reign for each of you?
Oh, the friendships.
For sure. Yeah, just the wonderful, wonderful people.
Yeah,
hands down.
Everyone's still friends. Like we all still talk. If anyone is in, because a lot of the cast, they came from the UK or from Australia. Megan and I were Canadian. There were some Americans, and everyone's living all over the world. But, anytime people are in the same city for work, because we all travel a lot for work. Will Kemp was just here in Vancouver. I got to see him. So we all, try and keep in touch and see each other when we can. We still sometimes have Reign parties, like not now in the pandemic, but we would have them before. And that was the best part. That made this job, I think, probably my favorite job I've ever done.
Me too.
Yeah. Like I would go back and do Reign in a heartbeat.
In 2 seconds.
Like Addie and I always say that we felt like we knew how good we did it. Yeah. But we didn't. Like we couldn't possibly know how amazing it was in the time, even though we felt like at the time we were like, this is amazing.
I mean, we both worked a bunch before we did Reign, and when we were shooting it, we were like, this is really good. This is how it should be all the time. And then when the show was getting cancelled, I remember us being like, well, we're a little tired. I guess it would be exciting to work on new projects. Don't really want to go.
Cut to 5 minutes later, we're like, no.
And no shade at any of the other projects we've been on since then. I've had a wonderful time and met some amazing people, but I feel like Reign was just so exceptional that nothing quite compares.
Well, again, the advantage as well as the challenge being an historical period piece and locations, sets. Last time we spoke about the opulence of the costumes and the rewards and challenges that presented. And I think you both agreed that the crown, of course, was the best part.
Yeah, although, oh my gosh, Addie. Okay, so I was showing Patty this before. I found my Elizabeth ring.
Why did you get your ring? I didn't get mine.
Okay, but I will say your ring was I think they made this ring, and I took it out today and I was like, man, I remember this being so much more baller. It's not actually I feel like it was made by someone in the back of the studio. Your ring was actually really beautiful, although maybe I'm remembering that wrong. But it is really cool. There, Elizabeth.
Let's blow it up.
So cool.
Janelle, we're gonna widescreen you on it. Oh yeah.
Yeah, there you go. There she is.
Wow, has a big E on it. I wouldn't have expected that from a period piece.
Yeah, but like
that's 21st century baller stuff.
Finger like this, and I'd be like,
yes.
Kiss the ring.
Kiss the ring. Addie and I were drunk on power. That's what we liked the show.
I'm afraid Mary has rejected your overture, Your Majesty.
No.
Absolutely good time. And again, it was it really was a delightful show. It really was. And obviously it's got a tremendous fan base, and one of which being my mother, who is an Elizabethan scholar, and she really thought, it's like, well, yeah, they're taking crazy liberties, but everybody's got the character. Everybody's got the timbre, as I've always pictured them as. So, and that's a credit. It's a credit to you as actresses, and a credit to the writing.
We did have like a really talented cast too.
Yeah,
played their parts so well. Like Craig, Narcisse, Megan, Ben. Like I just feel like every time I worked with any of them, I would just study what they did. Unfortunately, I never got to work with Adelaide. We're still petitioning to do a job together at some point, because then even
I keep auditioning for Batwoman and they won't put me in it. I'm like, come on.
I know. I need everyone to go tweet about putting Addie and Batwoman to the right.
I don't know if that works. Does that even work? I feel like
I don't know. Let's try it.
Let's try it.
Bring her in a Batwoman as a federal agent and create the antagonism between her character and your character.
No, I want to be a minion, because then I'll get to spend all my work hours just with Rachel. Like just one of Rachel's little minions, evil minions. Yeah, it's like a 3-episode arc. I'll be there for a month. It'll be perfect.
You are the queen. Your wish is my command. Unfortunately, I don't have casting authority. But I will send a tweet in with today.
I will play like a tree in the background of This Is Us, a scene that Addie's in. I'm just like the tree in the background of every scene that she's in. People are like, "What's that weird human tree?"
You're tall enough. That checks out.
Tall enough.
All right, team, let us know we're good to go on questions. So what do you say we take our first one?
Let's do it.
All right, this one comes Renee, and they want to know, what was your first reaction when you got your role in Rain?
Okay,
I cried. It was like a really hectic pilot season for me when I booked Rain, and I had a choice between Rain and a couple of other shows for the CW, and I chose that one because I have a Scottish background on both my mother's side and my father's side, and I was like, I want to play Queen. Then they were like, "Sick, you got the job." I was like, oh, and I just burst. It was very exciting, but I was also like really nervous because I'd been acting for a long time. I'd never been a lead on anything. I was still very young. I was only like 22, 23 when I got the job, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready for this. I thought I was, but I don't know. Oh my gosh. So, very exciting, but also very nerve-wracking.
Yeah. Well, you rose to the occasion.
Yeah, you rose to the occasion. You were a phenomenal lead. You were a star of the show in every sense of the word. She led that show. I always say shows, they start from the top and they go down. And if you have a wonderful number one, you're going to have a wonderful experience. And Adelaide really encapsulated that for me. And actually, what my story of what happened when I got the part is in large part thanks to Addie, because I was driving to San Francisco to visit my now husband, and I got the call that I got the part, and I was so excited, but I was in the car. I was like on this long haul drive. So I was just like, like this. And then I actually got a message from Adelaide on Twitter welcoming me. Oh, and wow. No, but you know what? Now I try to do that. like when on Batwoman or on any other experience that I have where I'm sort of in a position where I'm the first on a show, because it was just so lovely. Like the fact that she would reach out to me and welcome me. And I remember just thinking that kind of blew me away. And it made me, because it's very nerve-wracking coming onto a show, you know, in a second or third season when everything is established, and to be welcomed by the lead. I loved that about you, Ad. It was so sweet.
Oh,
Thanks.
adorable. Renee, thank you. Wonderful question to start us off with. What do we have next? From Joanna, what was your favorite storyline for your character?
Having a baby. I'm baby crazy. So getting to like have a pregnancy belly and then like get to hold a live baby like for work was like little babies. I love them. I love them so much. So I would have to say that was my favorite because I really love babies.
Oh,
I think I loved my, okay, this comes in two parts. I loved my love story with Ben Gideon, because I loved working with Ben so much, but I didn't love kissing Ben because he was like my brother. And so that was really weird. And I have like a lot of stories of when we had to do that. And it was just like so awkward. but I did really love that. And I actually also loved the storyline, like Elizabeth and Lola's friendship. I thought that was really interesting. And then it was so sad, the ending. Like so many of the endings of Elizabeth, they were inevitables, where she had to sacrifice her relationships or her heart for the crown. Even with Mary, you know, she didn't want to kill her, but she had no choice. And I always thought that was such an interesting and consistent character arc for Elizabeth, for Alice. Oh my gosh.
Oh, that works. Joanna, thank you. Great question. And what's next? From Rachel, what were your toughest costumes to wear?
Oh, hands down, my first costume. And Addie can attest to this. I remember it was beautiful. This red, you know, it had the big kind of thing in the back. But I'd never worn a corset before. And I remember going on set and I was so nervous. And Addie, I think I was in the hair and makeup trailer or something. And you said to me, you're like, oh, don't worry, like they get easier. They're not so bad after a while. Yeah. And then later, and I was like, oh, thank goodness. Okay, I'm gonna get used to this, because it was so tight. So think about like if someone has like constricting your lungs and you don't think about it, but unconsciously, you know how many words you can say on any given breath. Yeah. But when someone's squeezing your lungs, you have less air. You don't know it. You just run out of air. You can't talk. Oh. And then I think Addie, months later, I made some comment about how they were still really tight. And Addie was like, oh no, I just lied to you. I just wanted you to feel better. They don't get better.
I did lie.
I know. it was a sweet lie though.
It came from a good place.
It did.
It was like your first week. I didn't want you to like start stressing too early. You'd realize that yourself, like with the eating in the corsets, like you can't have a full lunch. So you like get your lunch and then you pack another thing to like eat later. Like you have to eat frequently throughout the day.
Never take your corset off at lunch, because then you eat your dinner and then you go to put it back on and it's game over. I did that one day and I just had to lay on the ground between takes because I was
so painful.
So painful. I was so full.
Now, were these costume corsets that looked like the really old style, which were truly torturous, or were these maybe modern designs that just looked like the old school ones?
I think they were modern corsets.
Okay,
I would, they were more modern, and a little bit more flexible. Like the corsets would give a little bit over time as they sort of molded to you, but. I mean, they're still corsets. They're still aggressive shapewear with like boning and the fabric, while it does give a little
laces in the back.
It's not stretch fabric and the laces weren't elastic. Like it's not like cute little corsets that you can get from like Savage by Fenty. They were like lacing with like rope and boning and the whole 9
Put it
yards.
this way, Addie and I didn't take our corsets with us when we finished the show. We were like, no.
Yeah, designed by two or three celery servants pulling. Yeah. Corsets are a mixed blessing.
There's something all right.
They change, though. It's weird because Addie wore them for 4 years. I wore them for 2 years, and they change your figure in a way when you're wearing them.
They change your shape.
Yeah, that's a thing. That's a real thing. Then the pandemic came along and your shape just goes back to the way it was.
Goes back to the way it was. My ribs are a little bit loose in their moorings now, and you can take your hands and put them either side of my ribs and compress my rib cage by about 2 or 3 inches now. And you didn't used to be able to do that before. It's like a favorite party. It was a favorite party trick of mine where I was like, yeah, no, my ribs will shift now. Grab my ribs and squeeze as hard as you can. And people would do it and be like, are you okay? And I'd be like, yeah, no, it doesn't hurt. You can just compress my rib cage now to reduce my waist size by like a couple inches.
You can't do that to my ribs, but that's crazy.
You have stronger abdominals than I do, though. You got like your muscle holding your bones in place, whereas I'm like a gelatinous blob. So malleable, Play-Doh.
Oh, wow. So for Addie, it's corsets, same as you, right? on that,
yeah. There was one particular outfit that was built for me that had the gold wire in it, and when I wore it on the first day, it hadn't been lined yet because I guess, it was their first time using that particular fabric, but the seams all had like the razor sharp edges of the gold wire. And it scratched the crap out of my wrists and all along my collarbone and all along the seams inside the dress. And that was extremely irritating. And I told them immediately, and they were like, well, you have to work in it all day. So if you just bear with it today, we'll fix it. And then they fixed it and it was fine. But I had like red welts all around my wrists, along my collarbone and shoulders. And I had to work in that all day, down the sides of my ribs where the seams were. Where it wasn't quite covered by the corset, and all up the inside of my arm where the seam was, just like a little red welt from the constant scratching and rubbing and friction from the edges of the gold wire. But they fixed it, and it became one of my favorite dresses after they fixed it. So,
all right, fair. Corsets, fun for everybody except the person that wears it. And Rachel, thank you. It was a fun one. What do we have next? From Angela, how much historical research did you do before filming?
I read a bunch of books and did a whole bunch of the wheel Google and watched a few movies on Mary Queen of Scots and things like that. I did a bunch of research, and then I just sort of decided to do my own thing.
Right.
Like with that knowledge, be like, okay, amazing. I get the gist of who she actually was as a person. And then there was the depiction of her in the writing. And I was like, I'm going to meet this sort of halfway to make something that like pays homage rather than being as much of a faithful reproduction, given the historical notes as possible.
And there are some good hard historical films on Mary.
There are some fantastic films out there. So it was like a real education, because I'm wasn't much of a history buff, and now I'm far more interested in like period pieces and shows and things like that than I ever was before. After shooting Rain, I'm like, ooh, interesting.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Rachel?
I went out like the weekend after I got it. I bought all of these books on Elizabeth, like Elizabeth and Mary, and I read the first one, which was a comparative piece on Elizabeth and Mary and why one was successful and the other one wasn't. And I remember telling Laurie McCarthy, who was the showrunner and creator of Rain, kind of proudly saying, like, I read this book and I have these other books. And Laurie said to me, she was like, that's great, but our show, like, you can kind of throw that all out the window because like we're kind of doing our own thing here. And I was like, oh, okay. So I guess I didn't need to read those. But I'd also been obsessed with Cate Blanchett's Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Like Oh,
Fantastic.
those films are when she's like going to war with Spain and that speech, and she's just so fantastic. So I guess I'd already done that research, but I don't know, it's hard when you play a historical character, because especially one that's been played by other people, because you don't want to do what they did. You want to pay homage to the person, but of course nobody really knows what they were like. You know, it's not like you're playing a historical person that lived 50 years ago and you have video footage of. So then it just becomes your own interpretation.
And a lot of historical interpretations are biased anyway, depending on who wrote them.
Yeah, like if Mary had been victorious, I'm sure the history of Elizabeth
would have looked very different.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think it never hurts for any actor to go on in a little bit and just understand some of this any bit of a historical character. Whether you're directed to go in another direction, it's just nice to have in your back pocket. And again, it's nice, Adelaide, you found a halfway point that absolutely worked, and your vision absolutely worked. So, yeah, the proof's in the pudding. So read, kids, learn history. It's fun. And Angela, thank you. Fun question. What do we have next from Kathy? Knowing the history, what advice would you give to your characters?
Oh. Don't marry people on a whim. She was very impulsive, was Mary Queen of Scots. You couldn't tell her anything. I mean, she did have patriarchy actively working against her, but I think in trying to sort of conform to what society expected of her and getting married, she actually sort of shot herself in the foot and robbed herself of some of the authority that she had. And, you know, like maybe be a little bit more flexible with the whole I am the rightful Queen of England thing, because like Elizabeth and Mary could have been a total like UK power team, and no, you were just really bullheaded about it. Wasn't France and Scotland enough? It's a bit greedy.
Apparently not.
Apparently not. I mean, I respect it, but also, come on, you took a gamble and you lost.
Yeah, that's
took a gamble and you lost. Could have been like power best friends, and you were cousins too. It was family as well. It's like could have been amazing. Could have been amazing if you just sort of simmered down a little bit, love. Stop marrying idiots.
Well, in Mary's defense, with regards to European royalty, everybody was everybody else's cousin.
That's very true.
That's true. Oh my gosh. I was looking, okay, this is not on the topic of rain, but I was looking at a photo of the last Tsar of Russia, and he was the cousin of the then King of England, and they look identical. They look identical. Go look it up right now. The last Tsar of Russia, Alexander, I think his name was, and the King of England at the time, because they were related. But they're in like completely different countries. But yeah, they were all related. It's shocking they were even alive. It was like a lot of intrigue.
Well, once you had the preferred firstborn male child, everything else was just a negotiating tool.
Isn't it?
They look
I know.
Oh, they could be twins.
Yes, I know. See, I'm not kidding you. I was literally like sitting there being like, what? Like crazy.
Down to the mustache.
I know.
I mean, it's all the same families, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but they're not even brothers. They were cousins. That shows you how like inbred everyone was. They're identical.
That's so wild.
Hence the term blue bloods.
Yeah, well, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah,
I don't know about that.
I would give Elizabeth. I'd probably
hug.
I mean, there were she ushered in the golden age, but of course, if you look at it through today's lens, or really, I mean, at any time, there were some terrible things that Elizabeth did as well. Like she was part of slavery and things like that, you know, so obviously I would be like, get it together. But yeah, like I think in terms of her love life or those things, Elizabeth, there was no choice at the time. She couldn't get married. She couldn't have a child. those were probably very smart decisions. And in fact, I think that's what gave her the success that she had, because she made those choices, even though it was at the sacrifice of her heart.
She needed a really good hug, I reckon.
Yeah.
A hug.
Doesn't everybody?
Yes.
She needed a best friend.
Yeah.
Needed a best friend that did not care about the crown or what she could do. Somebody that just, yeah, you know, that, but surrounded by the courts and the characters. Yeah, it's just royalty at that time was not like being a celebrity now.
No. No. Definitely not.
Although cancel culture is a little bit like getting beheaded.
That's true.
Yeah. So we haven't evolved that much.
Very true. Very true.
Just evolved from nailing notices to the town hall door to social media. That's all.
Bring back the pillory. I'd rather spend 24 hours in the pillory than get a syrup. But anyway.
Yeah, throw rotten fruit at me for 24 hours and then let's move on.
Exactly.
Fine.
Fine. And Kathy, thank you. Very fun question. What do we have next? From Victoria. What was the hardest scene you had to shoot?
Season 2, episode 9.
Yeah.
We get asked this question a lot, and it's always the same answer. It was that was the hardest scene I had to shoot. And if you know, you know, not going to get into it because trigger warning. But yeah, that storyline was like the most challenging storyline, and that scene in particular was the most difficult for me personally.
Certainly. Yeah. I think the most difficult for me doesn't compare to Addie's at all. It was probably the day that we shot Lola's death. Really and truly just because it was cold like I'd never, and I'm Canadian, I am from Toronto, and it was so cold. I honestly thought I had frostbite on my feet. I couldn't feel them. I couldn't feel my feet, and nobody seemed to care. Like I went around telling everyone, I was like, can't feel my feet, and everyone was like, cool, we need you over here. Like, and I just like felt like I was like, am I walking? I don't know. My phone had just spontaneously died because it was so cold. I remember thinking, like, I'm never gonna leave this place. It was so cold. That was hard. And then, you know, like Anna was dying, and it was not in real life, but she was off the show, and so everyone was very emotional, and still couldn't feel my feet.
Yeah.
I think the worst is when you get so cold that it sinks into your bones, and your bones start aching in your hips and your lower back. Like when you go past the numbness. Oh, it makes me like clench just to think about it. But sometimes shooting in that cold, the cold would just travel all the way up, and you wouldn't be able to feel anything until the pain set in. And once the pain set in, it was everywhere, all like in your bones, in your legs, in your hips, in your back. And you just have to live with it and work through it all day, because you weren't like when we were shooting with limited daylight hours, you had to be out there, you just had to get it done. And you'd just be in so like this constant bone deep ache, and then like your flesh would just be like feel like cold wax by the end of the day. So painful getting all the feeling back into your legs. Looks very pretty in the snow though, all those scenes. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Looks nice. That's the whole point, I guess.
We suffer for our art. And Victoria, thank you. Great question. And let's go ahead and roll another one. And this comes from Lydia. What was your funniest and or favorite blooper?
Sex horse with Megan Follows was the funniest scene of the whole show for me personally, and I ruined that scene so many times because I couldn't stop laughing. I don't know how they got any usable footage out of me that day. That takes the cake for me. Yeah,
mine was my first love scene with Ben, because I was supposed to be laying down, and he was like kind of coming up like crawling up to like kiss me, and he kneed me in my private parts. And he was, yeah. And I felt so badly for him. Like, and it hurt, but like, I felt so badly for him because he was so embarrassed and he knew it the second it happened. And then he just looked at me and then he like looked down and then he just ran off of set. Like, he just ran off. Because he was so embarrassed. He like, and it was so funny because honestly, Ben, he almost treated me with the utmost respect, and I felt so badly for him that happened. But it did, and now I'm telling everyone.
And you've been friends ever since.
Nice. Lydia, thank you. Great one. What's next? From Nuzette? Hope I pronounced that right. How did you get into character?
It wasn't hard to get, like, with the costume
and the set.
I wore a wig, the set, and the accent. You just felt like a different person the minute you put on those costumes. You walked differently because of the corsets. You held yourself in a way. I don't know. To
breathe differently, move differently. Like, we didn't really have to do, and you didn't really have to do any of like the work because it was such a
English people.
Around my English people, yeah. It was such a transformative like process just to get ready for the day. So it almost just happened incrementally as like the wigs were put on, or hair pieces were put in, and the makeup, and then lacing into the corset and getting the dresses on and all the fastenings and the buttons.
But you're really good at accents. For me, it took probably, I'd say, 6 episodes before I was comfortable just like dropping into the accent. But I had to have a coach for the accent. And Addie, I feel like, is just so good with accents. But for me, that was a challenge at the beginning. And then at the end, now I make dinner reservations in English accents.
Ooh.
I know, because I feel like people think English people are cooler. And they'll always give you a dinner reservation. Like, oh, this English person. I definitely want to give this one a reservation.
Cultural bias.
We as Americans, yes, there's something that
right?
we have a fascination and a deference.
Totally. They're like, oh, this is a Canadian on the phone? No, weird. And then they're like, English person? Of course.
Oh, right away. It's so pleasure to have you.
Yeah, I need to start leaning into my Australian accent more.
I know. There you go.
I just mimic whoever I'm around. I just copy their accent, which is why I often sound very American. So I'm just around Americans all the time.
Not when you're around Australians. Then you are full Crocodile Dundee.
That's very true. That is very true. Yep.
Someday Crocodile Dundee will no longer be in the American interpretation for Australian. Hey!
It'll be something else, but similar.
It could have been worse. It could have been Yahoo Serious.
That's true. It's very true.
Although I have a soft spot for young Einstein, and I'll leave it at that. And Nuzette, thank you. Fun question. What do we have next? From Teresa, if you had to choose a character to play instead of your own, which one would you have chosen?
I mean, I don't have the chops for it, but Queen Catherine.
Yeah, I know, that's the problem. Like, I feel like we'd all say Queen Catherine, but no one would do it as well as Megan. So that
none of us would be able to compare to her performance. Like, it would, or Narcy.
But you could compare to Craig's.
No, it would be the same for everyone. It would be one of those two characters, if not both. But knowing we do like a subpar job.
Yeah, I know. So that I feel like we always say this, and it's always those two characters, but then we don't want to play them because they were done
perfectly to perfection.
Yeah,
no comparison.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. But Teresa, thank you though. Interesting question. Still the same. What's next? From Helena, which death on the show do you think was the most tragic?
Mine. Francis.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah. I know it was like historically accurate, but that was sad.
You two on that show was like Endgame. That was so. I remember because I watched the whole first and second season before I joined the show, And you guys just had the most magnificent chemistry on that show. I just always wanted, I wanted Francis to live for you. So you guys are happy forever together.
We wouldn't have had a show, unfortunately.
I know.
But yeah, no, that was a really incredible, like, beautifully written. Toby, of course, is incredibly talented, an exceptional, a consummate actor and professional. So it was a joy to work with him. And I feel like that relationship really, he carried most of it, if we're being completely honest. I was exhausted all the time, but it was like a really beautiful relationship. And I understand why the fans were so attached to that ship, because I was as well. I was really attached to that ship too. I just wanted them to be happy. I felt bad for my own character. I was like, damn it, why can't you just be happy?
Yeah. Very true. Very true. Helena, thank you. Great one. I think we have time for one more. So let's see if we can go out on a really fun one. And this is going to come from Mary. How has being on Reign impacted your career and life in general?
Addie, do you want to go first?
Sure. I mean, Reign was like the defining moment in my career. Like, it was, I grew up on Reign. I did that show for 4 years, 5 if you count, the pilot to shooting the first season. Yeah, I grew up on that show, and it was like an incredibly formative part of not only my life but also my career. Like, I've been working pretty steadily ever since, and it sort of was the first time anyone had trusted me with a role of that magnitude. And I like to think that I stepped up to the plate, and I did a good job, and not just on screen but off screen professionally. Like, as the role, like, I have very strong opinions on what your role as a number one is going in, and I did my best to sort of live up to my own expectations for myself. But it taught me a lot about myself and about what it means to act and to be on a show, and taught me a lot about the industry. And yeah, I don't know. And it also, like, it was really wonderful for a lot of people. A lot of people took a lot from the show, and it was extreme. It's been extremely helpful, and made a lot of people very happy. That's kind of the only reason I act anyway, is to make people happy. So yeah,
you succeeded at all points.
Yeah,
you did.
Thank you.
I'd say, how it impacted my career is obvious. It for me was the first time. Obviously, I was an actor as a child, and then I'd left to go to school. And when I came back, it wasn't as easy for me as I thought it would be to get back into the industry. And so Reign in my career marked the first time an American network gave me a big opportunity again for a long period of time. And so that was a really, really big deal for me. Reign sort of represented me having done it, made it. And then in terms of my life, I thought the impact on my career would be the larger impact, but it actually had a larger impact just on my life in general, because that was some of the happiest. I mean, in other ways, like Addie and I talk about it, and we kind of grew up on that show together. So there were things that, we go through these dramas and like heartaches and like things like that together. But when I look back on it, some of just like the happiest times. And I just loved that show. I loved that experience. I loved being on set with everyone. I loved being off set with everyone. I couldn't get enough of that experience. And that's really, really special. And it's really rare. That job was not work for me ever. Even when I couldn't feel my feet, I'd still go back to that day.
Not even when I had dance rehearsals with a stomach flu and was taking breaks to go and vomit in the alley outside. Not a day that was work.
That is a true
story. Hey, I mean, you got to keep on working unless you're in the hospital. You show up.
Yeah.
No ifs, ands, or buts.
Yeah, that's the life. Mary, thank you. That was a wonderful question to lead us out on, because GalaxyCon viewers, this has been my time with the Queens of Reign. Ladies, any final words for our audience before we go?
just thank you so much for coming, and a very happy Valentine's Day.
I know. Thank you so much for still, this many years later, loving the show. We love the opportunity to be together. And so you guys make that possible because you still love the show. You still want to hear Addie and I talk about the show. And we love talking about it. So thank you for that. And yes, thanks for being our Valentine.
Yeah. And I have loved, once again, this opportunity to host both of you. Thank you again for joining us on the GalaxyCon virtual stage. Thank you to our audience for joining us, and thank you for those wonderful questions. Hope to see you all again soon. Until then, bye-bye, everyone. Take care. Happy Valentine's Day, and please keep washing those hands.